Hi, everyone. Welcome to Sit Heads Meditation Club. My name is John. I help organize this group. Sit Heads is a sitting and social group for people interested in deep meditation practice. I like to call us a serious meditation group for non-serious people uh, based in the physical world in New York City, but we also do a bunch of stuff online. If you want to hang out with us, you can find us at sit-heads.com. Sit-heads.com. So, all right, that's what we have going on with Sit Heads. It is my distinct pleasure and honor to introduce DaRa Williams. DaRa, I'm going to bring you up here, okay? Hey, DaRa.
Oh, good evening.
It's nice to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's nice to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
No, it's my pleasure, really. Do you mind if I do like a quick third person introduction of you?
Not at all.
All right, here I go. DaRa Williams is a trainer, meditation teacher, and psychotherapist. She has been meditating for 25 years. Um, she's a graduate of the Spirit Rock Insight Meditation Society teacher training program and is an Insight Meditation Society emeritus guiding teacher. And she is the program manager and a core teacher in the current Insight Meditation Society, or IMS, teacher training program. DaRa has also been a clinician and administrator in the field of mental health for over 25 years and currently maintains a private practice in Manhattan. So she brings together um, both sort of contemporary clinical psychotherapy and understandings of mental health with a deep meditation and Dhamma background, which is always cool to see. You see people as a psychotherapist, Dora?
Absolutely. I have it's the practice has become smaller because I've been teaching so much.
Mm,
But absolutely I do that. And it's partially to keep me grounded in what's happening for people in the on the ground level, what people are managing, what people are needing support with. Keeps me sharp and fresh for actually offering the Dharma because I'm in
yeah,
the presence of various levels of suffering, not like a complaint, but people.
yeah, yeah, people. Um, so one other thing I want to mention before we go, oh, one more question. You take one-on-one Dhamma students as well, right? You work with people
Absolutely.
one-on-one?
Yes, absolutely. That's actually a mode I really like to work in.
Okay, cool. So I always like to ask that, and am I correct that you do so on a Dana basis?
Yeah.
Love to see that. So let's get into it, Dara. I have the pleasure of getting to have a one-on-one conversation with you before we opened up to Q&A. Something that I'm inclined to ask you about is how your psychotherapy practice, how your one-on-one psychotherapy sessions partake of your Dhamma experience, how your Dhamma uh, teaching one-on-one partakes of your work as a therapist, and how do you draw a line between the two? Like, for instance, when you work as a psychotherapist, I assume that you are not doing that on Dana. That's a job, right? So I assume that people pay you, they pay you your rate, but you're offering the Dhamma, you don't charge anything. But that requires you to clearly delineate which is which. So how do you do that? Can you really stop the Dhamma from creeping into your psychotherapy work and vice versa?
Absolutely not. However, what it does is it gives me a lens in which I am hearing and seeing and knowing people for my own edification in terms of what I may offer as a way to navigate or transform or resolve whatever the issue is that may be before us. So I don't do therapy in mentor meetings and I don't do Dhamma in therapy meetings, but my perspective is an integrated perspective in terms of understanding human beings through the lens of Dhamma and through the lens of psychotherapy. And I think it actually affords a richness actually to what people are able to obtain or attain through working with me, and can short circuit actually on either side a lot of the suffering that oftentimes shows up in both places, you know, whether it's you're retreating or just in life with the Dhamma, or if you're working with me in a psychotherapeutic way. And I don't do everything with everybody. A lot of it depends on the constellation of who the person is, what they're bringing, what their awarenesses are. Like if there's no indication from a client that I'm working with, and I particularly use the word client as opposed to patient when I'm speaking about my psychotherapy folks that I work with. If there's no indication that there's an interest or an opening or an awareness around meditation and Dhamma, I'm not necessarily going to bring that forward. You know, and in the Dhamma, when I'm meeting with people one-on-one, I will denote, okay, so maybe what I'm getting ready to say is I'm stepping a little to the left of the Dhamma, but I feel called to offer this to you because I actually think it will support and help you in practicing and developing your practice. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what's there.
It does, but I'm gonna sort of nudge on it a little more.
Go right ahead.
So I think it'll be fun for us. So, you said that, you talked about like, oh, this might be like a little left of the Dhamma or a little outside the Dhamma.
And I wasn't using left like in the political
No, I didn't assume you.
Okay.
But I appreciate the clarification. But
yeah.
You said you don't do psychotherapy in your Dhamma sessions and you don't do Dhamma in your psychotherapy sessions. How do you know which one you're doing? Like, how can you say, especially when the two have interpenetrated so deeply at this point, and like third wave cognitive therapies are basically just Buddhism with the serial numbers filed off, right? If you're doing like ACT, DBT, it's just shot through with Buddhism, basically.
Yes.
And so, like, it like seems like it's um like to be able to say I don't do psychotherapy in my Dhamma sessions, I don't do Dhamma in my psychotherapy sessions, it has to follow that you can clearly denote to yourself when you're doing one and not the other, and the other and not the one. What's that rubric look like? Like where, because it has to be a pretty
I
sharp
don't think it's
line.
that clean. And I think it's actually as I'll underscore that a lot of it has to do with my understanding of what I see before me, whether I'm sitting with a client or whether I'm sitting with a meditator. What are they bringing? What's there for them? How am I perceiving that? And then I can translate into either language, the language of psychotherapy or the language of Buddhism, to support the person with whatever it is that they're bringing forward. So I don't make a clean delineation like I'm hearing you speak to. I'm not sure, but it's really
I
integrated.
am. I maybe I'm being a little like this is like this is like the pedantic lawyer in me. I'm trained as a lawyer.
Yes, and that's what I was just going to say. I'm a highly trained therapist and meditation teacher, so I just better be able to keep those lines straight.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I'm being a bit of a pedant, but it was just an interesting like, oh, she's able to keep that so clean. She must have a clean sense of how the two are distinct. Whereas to me, it seems like such a muddle. Like it seems like the boundary between the two is so permeable and unclear.
But the boundary that gets set up is the boundary of why that person is coming to me. If they're coming to me because they want therapy, that's the domain we're going to be in. If they're coming to me because they want Dhamma support or holding with creating and developing and deepening their practice, then that's the playing field we're on. So like I wouldn't go on a football field and play basketball. But some of the things that are really important in both of those sports is team collaboration. Like a lot of they have some things in common that can translate back and forth.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm gonna let go of my little pedantic thing, but it is interesting to me. Like I've heard, I
I
have a
know
friend.
lawyers, man.
Yeah, right. We're not fun at parties. Um, but I have a friend whose name is Oliver Berkman. He's a writer, and we've
Mm,
had he wrote a wonderful book called 4,000 Weeks that I recommend to everyone.
mm,
Beautiful, beautiful book. The subheading is Time Management for Mortals. It was like a big New
mm,
York Times bestseller. It was all about like essentially stuff like seeing time management as like a fruitless affair and understanding that like we're in time. We can't be outside of time managing it. Like life is finite, time is finite. Stop trying to
mm-hmm.
do everything. It's a good book. But anyway, I used to do these long walks in Prospect Park in Brooklyn with Oliver, and we would talk about this stuff. Um, and one thing that we sort of cautiously settled on and ultimately decided didn't really work was the idea that maybe psychotherapy is about the content. And psychotherapy is about the narrative and about the past and the future and about understanding the story of you in some way. And that the Dhamma is less interested in that stuff, right? Like psychotherapy is interested in what you're thinking. Dhamma is much more interested that you're thinking.
Well,
And
that's interesting what you're saying because actually, one of the forms of psychotherapy that I practice is not so much interested in the narrative or the story at all. It's called Indigenous
mm,
focusing or oriented therapy and complex trauma. And one of the
mm,
things that I was going to bring forward, actually, this you kind of opened the door to that, is that
yeah.
that what you were speaking to, the analysis, the content, the all of that is actually derived from or evolving out of, coming out of a Eurolinear mind,
Mm,
right? But there are other forms of psychotherapy which originate out of the minds of people who maybe are people of color or people whose minds have been cultivated and conditioned, not necessarily through that linear European lens. And so, that's an assumption that psychotherapy is solely interested on contents to actually don't want to hear it. What I want to work with is, and for some people it's important actually though. Let me clarify that. For some people it's important to tell their story because they've
yeah,
never
I'm
had
not
the
hearing
opportunity
you.
to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dra. I was just going to say, I'm not hearing you speaking pejoratively of what you're describing as a sort of Eurolinear approach at all. I think I'm just hearing you open up possibilities or pointing to possibilities beyond it, right?
Yes,
Or
yes,
next to
beyond it.
it or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like not necessarily above it,
Absolutely.
but please, I didn't
Right,
mean to
not
interrupt.
hierarchical.
Please
I
go
didn't take it
ahead.
that way. I'm done.
Okay. This is fascinating. So you just introduced the idea of a therapeutic modality, you might say, that I'm not familiar with. There are a few words in there. There's indigenous, focusing. I didn't catch the whole thing because it was a few
Psychotherapy
words.
and complex trauma.
There you go.
And
I would love to hear more about it.
what that form does, and I know we're in a conversation about Dharma, but what that form
Yeah.
of therapy does is center um, intergenerational and multi-generational trauma. So it puts the trauma in the vein of the collective or the ancestral, even when it's something that happened to you or something that you observed. And so that's already outside the curve, outside the circle of kind of the other forms of psychotherapy.
Hmm. Yeah. Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Um, how is it practiced? And then we can, you like to distinguish between Dhamma and psychotherapy, even if the distinction is murky. But we'll dive headfirst into Dhamma after this.
Okay.
But could you briefly tell me what the practice of this modality looks or feels or sounds like? What is a
Hmm.
session like?
It really evolves out of the amorphous, And so when you say what does it's not like EMDR or CBT or any of those where there's actually a format or a uh, technology that
Hmm.
one follows to
Yeah.
get to it. It really is dealing with the felt sense, the pre-knowing. And so it's really very evolving and not centered around A plus B. If you do this, this, and this, you'll get this result. It's really working with whatever the felt senses that the person may be bringing, or a little bit of what the content may be that the person is bringing. Where it's not so important really to know the story. What's important is how is it impacting your ability to be in your life in a well way, and let's
Mm,
find the medicines that can support you being well in your life. And a lot of times the medicines may be nature, may be engaged with air, water, fire, trees. So really bringing a circle to therapy as opposed to a line.
mm, yeah. I mean, it it sounds to me like even though you wouldn't necessarily call it Dhamma, there's a lot of shared DNA there.
In that form, there is. Yes, in that
The
form of therapy,
communal
there is.
element of it, the decentering of the sort of individual as an
Mhm.
individual,
Right.
even perhaps a sense of the sacred, maybe. You didn't say
Yep.
that, but that seems
Yep.
implicit in what you're saying.
Yep.
Um, oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, once again, sort of um making impossible a clean distinction between, this is Dhamma, this is psychotherapy, and here's the definition of which is one or which is the other. They obviously seem sort of connected.
Mhm.
Um, and the line remains sort of blurry and more of a thing that one has to navigate oneself instead of here's like a clean rubric. Um,
Yeah, and I think that it manifests differently. Like if I was a Dharma teacher and therapy, being a therapist, being a psychologist was not my. I came to the Dharma as a lawyer. If I came to the Dharma as a lawyer, my perspective and my lens for understanding somebody and understanding the Dharma is going to be different than the lens that I bring, having been a therapist, going to clinical psychology school. If you come as a business person, like whatever, we're not outside of our contexting. We're not outside of that, and so
yeah.
we bring those minds to whatever is before us. Yes, and I
Mm.
so I think it's a little bit maybe I don't know, maybe I'd have to think about this, but maybe a little bit of an artificial distinction between Dharma and psychotherapy. Anyway, I don't know about the others, but other
Yeah.
professions and whatnot. I mean,
Yeah.
well, you all had her, Taweri is a prosecutor, and she brings that prosecutorial mind to her Dharma teaching, and she's an exceptional Dharma teacher who's really good
She's
at
wonderful.
yeah,
We've had her two or three times at this point. I think she's so awesome.
yeah,
Um, yeah, no, I agree. That distinction is hard to draw. Ultimately, they're about helping a person be with their own mind and heart and not suffer as much, right? I mean, and
yeah. I mean, that was a natural evolution for me personally, because in doing therapy, I can reach 20 people for 5 years, 10 years, whatever. As a Dharma teacher, I have the possibility of impacting hundreds of people.
Mhm.
And so it was a kind of for me a natural evolution to another way to manifest my intention, which is to be a part of whatever it takes to relieve suffering for people.
Yeah, here, here. Um, let's talk about your Dhamma background and teaching. One place I love to talk about, you and I talked about this a little bit already, but I know that that you practice in a style. I don't remember if you studied with him directly, but I know that there's a lot of Sayadaw U Tejaniya in your Dhamma.
Mm-hmm.
And I am super excited to talk to you about that because I am a recent people tend to become people tend to become sort of fanatical converts to the U Tejaniya style, right? Someone gets into U Tejaniya and it's like they're U Tejaniya gang for life. Um, and I kind of feel that way too, though I mentioned to you that I don't really connect with Sayadaw U Tejaniya's teachings as taught by him, but when Andrea Fella teaches it, for some
Mm-hmm.
reason I just I just like lock right in. But
Mm-hmm.
I was like an intense Mahasi boy doing my Mahasi Vipassana. Um, and then I started loosening up and opening up and loosening up and opening up. And then I read Andrea teaching in the U Tejaniya style, and it just like was like, oh, that's it.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
That's what I've been inching my way towards. What is it about U Tejaniya's style? This is for anyone who doesn't know, sorry. Sayadaw U Tejaniya is a Burmese monk and meditation master, a relatively young one, a contemporary one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He's still alive, not even that old. And it's he's in the lineage of the famous Mahasi Sayadaw, so the style of practice most often associated with the Insight Meditation Society. This is Joseph Goldstein's style of practice, etc. Sayadaw U Pandita, this whole lineage, but he takes a quite different approach.
Mm-hmm.
um Gentler in a way, more receptive, um less um less focused on like less intense in a way. And so I know that a lot of your practice was in the Thai forest tradition, which is totally different. U Tejaniya is
Right.
Burmese. What drew you to U Tejaniya? Yeah, why don't we start there? How did you encounter it, and what made you think, oh, this is a practice that I should be incorporating, even though it's from a quite different lineage?
Yeah, I think that what drew me was following my intuition. I'm not so much a planner and or a striver in terms of I'm going to build my practice this way and I'm going to achieve this and I'm going to hit the jhanas and I'm going to like I just like, oh, this is coming across my screen. Okay, let me check that out. Oh, this is coming across
Hmm.
my screen. Okay, let me check that out because I figure if it's coming across my screen, it's coming for me to take a look at. So that's how it's not that I knew a lot of people that were practicing in U Tejaniya form or anything like that, that I was hearing stuff about. It was just like something about whatever the description was, and we're talking 20 years now, so I don't remember what it was, but whatever the description was for the retreat he was teaching, there was something in that wording that pulled me, that called me. And so I acted on that. I've developed the intention to listen to my intuition and to follow it. And so I did a retreat with him. And almost from like the second or third day, it was fairly early. I was like, ah, I'm home. Like I can do this. And for me, two of the main things that really draw me to that practice, that form of practicing, is the non-separation of on the cushion, off the cushion. Like
Yeah,
it's all practice, it's all
yeah.
dharma. And that's very important in my understanding in terms of what keeps me connected to the dharma. So that's one thing. And then the,
Hmm.
the other thing is kind of what you alluded to, where it's like, you know what? We can relax. We can, not only can we relax, but that actually um, sets up in my thinking, in my observing, a real rich practice. I think one of the things that differentiated U Tejaniya from some of the other master teachers is that he lived a life before he became a monk. Like he wasn't raised up as a monk,
Yeah,
right? He was a businessman, he had a family, like kind of did the Buddha thing, right? Like when Buddha became Buddha. So
yeah,
I think that influences, like I was talking earlier about the context that we bring to something.
yeah.
I think that makes his form, it's not just accessible, it's like real. It's real. That's what it is. It's real and it's grounded. It's
Yeah.
real and it's grounded. Yeah.
Yeah, I also love like when Andrea, because like I said, I'm imbibing these teachings through by way of Andrea Fella. I've read
Right.
Utejaniya as well, but it just lands better with me. And when she said, "Oh yeah, the instructions for walking meditation, they're the same as the ones for sitting meditation. The instructions for daily life practice, they're the same." That was so refreshing. It really
Yeah,
just doesn't ever have to stop. Just like let the flywheel of awareness and practice keep spinning.
exactly.
Really
Exactly.
powerful. Yeah.
Exactly. And that builds momentum, that builds strength, that so that when you hit those points where it's like, where life is like doing you, you have that to hold you.
Yeah.
Now you don't have to go run, sit on the cushions. Like, oh, it's right there. It's right
Yeah.
there. And this is not a commentary on sitting meditation. Sitting meditation is great, you know,
Hmm.
no more so than laying, no more so than walking, no more
Okay.
so than the Brahma Viharas, no more so, like they're all just different inroads or different ways of coming to understanding and clarity.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, oh, I had a oh, I remember what I wanted to say. I also feel like I should say, one thing that I notice when people are a convert to a different style of practice, or when they're practicing in one way and then they find another way and they're like, oh, this is it,
Mm-hmm.
is they take that this is it, which is really a this is it for me. And I would go further and say, this is it for me right now,
Mm-hmm.
and they turn it into a this is it objectively. This is the truer practice, the stronger practice, the more correct practice. and
Yeah,
so
yeah.
and so like I myself need to be careful, just because like I've found that the Mahasi practice right now is like it's not suited to where I am right now. and,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
this practice is better suited. It would be easy to slip into that, into like, yeah, here's all the reasons why the U Tejaniya practice uh, corrects the imbalances of Mahasi practice, or is an evolution of the Mahasi practice. And I don't feel that way. The Mahasi practice is beautiful, 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 and it's brought so many people to awakening, right?
Yes.
But like, do you know what I mean? I feel like, and I imagine you feel the same way, that like the U Tejaniya practice spoke to you, not because it's truer in some objective sense, but because it met
Yeah.
you where you were.
And if any, we're good for this. Us Dharma people are good for this. Well, what form do you practice, and what style do you practice? Like, I don't know. I practice DaRa's practice in relationship to what I've learned in all, because there's a piece here and there's a piece there and there's a piece there, and it somehow there becomes this integrated practice that
Yeah.
that really just holds me, and allows me to be in the world with some truth and some
Yeah.
clarity.
But it
I
does
mean, I think
happen, right? Like it's even in
a lot
Dharma
of people,
circles where we're all supposed to be holding to our views very lightly. There
yes.
there is this sort of comparative dharmaology where people like to hold their different practice styles up to one another. And
Really? Like
I thought you were
I
serious for a second. I was like, oh my God, to be so blessed as to not have encountered that.
no,
Um,
no, no. But that is kind of what I was pointing to. It's like, yes, it's out there, and I don't plug into that because I'm like, wait a minute. If your practice is so, you wouldn't. Why are you talking like this? And you're a
yeah.
practitioner, and you have some understanding and clarity. This is inconsistent. This does not match.
It sounds to me, DaRa, like even when you came to the U Tejaniya practice, I know you're also deep in the Thai forest tradition. I know that Tanisara and Kittisaro are big
Right.
teachers of yours and formative influences.
Right.
And I see sort of a trend in the like in terms of the practices you gravitate towards that I think is interesting. Um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it sounds to me like you came to these practices already with an attitude that was not especially strivey, not especially attainment focused. I don't want to presume. That's what I'm hearing. That's my guess. Is that
Mm-hmm.
right? Would you say that you were able to sort of hold those things loosely from the start? That just happened to be how you were wired?
I think it is some degree related to how I've been conditioned,
Okay.
because I have lots of success that only came through um, not striving, but wanting to attain some level, like the college I went to, that just a lot, my whole life, kind of like a lot of attainment there. So I think that some of it is, but I also think some of it, and this may not be relevant for everybody who's here now, but maybe you can find something in it for yourself. I also think being a Black woman coming into this Dharma system, at the time I came in, there were hardly any BIPOC.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something about navigating that really influenced my, like, let me check this out for myself. What are you saying? Is that a piece that's there because of who you are in the world and who you are in this world, meaning the Dharma world? And I think that U Tejaniya form and Ajahn Chah form
Hmm.
are a bit more, maybe not aligned, but accessible to those of us who are conditioned outside of the dominant culture conditioning. So we have the dominant culture conditioning, but there's also a whole nother set of conditioning that we have.
Hmm. Yeah. That's super interesting. That's super interesting. I mean, I'm a white man who grew up grew up in New York and New Jersey. So I don't have that same lived experience. And, for me, I gravitated towards, and this is probably a bunch of things about me. I don't think it can be reduced just to like my whiteness and my maleness.
Right.
But, something that I was attracted to practices that are they have stages that are very clearly delineated that you can move through. So you get little cookies of achievement. Now I'm in this stage. Now I'm in this stage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you get to go on your little hero's journey, right, through the stages. Practices that lend themselves well to intensity.
Mm.
Practices that are lend themselves or that can incline one, even if it's not helpful to the practice, that can incline one towards a whole lot of analysis. They can be quite cerebral.
Yes, yes, yes,
And
yes, yes, yes.
I've noted how like so like in particular, this is not to diss these practices because I think for some people they can hold these practices beautifully, but like, the book The Mind Illuminated, if you're familiar with that book,
Mm-hmm.
um, you
Mm-hmm.
know, that I spent a lot of time practicing in that style. The person who wrote that book, the teacher Chuladasa, I did 7 months of retreat with him, um, 10 years ago now. But I just noticed that there are certain styles of practice that attract that like
Yeah,
attract people with often attract people with a and the Mahasi practice too, I think to an extent,
yeah.
attract people with a tendency toward striving, analysis, mapping, cons wanting to conceptualize, and
Mm-hmm.
they attract those people and then they feed them a bunch more of what they already have, perhaps
Mm.
too much of,
Which they
you
already
know?
align with. Yeah.
And I
You
think
know,
that was the experience, that was my experience. And I noticed that you gravitated towards and are practicing styles that I think repel people like me and would probably be incredibly healthy and good for people like me, right? Like the U Tejaniya style, the Thai forest tradition. These are like my instinct is no, give me the ticky-tacky, uh, highly technical,
mm,
stage-wise practice. Give me that. But I actually think what would have been better for me is, maybe I needed that at the time to get to the place where I
mm-hmm,
realized what would be good for me.
mm-hmm.
But it's like you seem to have gravitated from the start
Well, you have to
toward,
remember, right? The book, what is it? Wings of Awakening. And I think you and I touched in on this when we had our conversation before, right? It's wisdom and compassion.
yeah.
Wisdom and compassion. And there's been a historical weighting on the wisdom side in our Vipassana tradition. I can't speak to other traditions,
Yeah.
but in Vipassana tradition, it's been weighted. And I actually think what's been happening in the last 10, since there's been diversifying within the
Hmm.
context, that it's actually started to swing back the other way, not to be all the way over here, but to actually be in the middle, as Bhikkhu Bodhi says, to
You
actually be
mean when you say
balanced.
that, you mean like demographic diversity, like in terms of like more people of color being in the
All
mix
different
and
diversities, all
mm,
different diversities. Yes, yes,
yeah.
yes, definitely,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I know that you're someone who really puts a lot of emphasis on the Brahma Viharas. Can you
Absolutely.
would you be willing to make the case for people who don't currently prioritize the Brahma Viharas, or perhaps see it as an ancillary practice, a secondary practice? They don't have time for this. They're busy doing their Vipassana so they can get enlightened, so they can be stream enterers or whatever. Would you be willing to make the case for like perhaps rethinking that position if you think they should at least be open
Well,
to that?
well, I don't think anybody should do anything or be any kind of way. So
Touche.
people got to do it. People got to do what they got to do. But
Fair enough.
I think that one needs to look at one's motivation for engaging with the practice. And if what's motivating you or what you're seeking to attain is enlightenment, so you don't have to come back and so that you can, go for it. But that's not where my interest is. Where my interest is uplifting human beings, you know, human beings. And so that an analytic kind of form that you're speaking to doesn't, it leaves people out. It leaves people out. It leaves
Mm,
people out. And so I don't necessarily, I think that everybody, all of us, should be familiar with as many different forms as possible.
oh,
And
interesting.
we then funnel it in and we create our practice. Because our practice is, practice is like you alluded to this. Practice is not stagnant. What's needed in this moment at this time in relationship to these conditions may not be the practice of 5 years from now, where
Mm,
your life has changed and all kinds of things. And so um to have enough familiarity with enough variations on the practice such that if you become aware that this just really is not working for me anymore, you have someplace else to land, you have someplace else to go, as opposed to leaving the practice or thinking that there's something wrong or
hmm.
those kinds of ways of being in relationship to the practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, Dara.
Yeah, and
Um,
I'll come just say one other thing in terms of the Brahma Vihara. Not only am a
please.
proponent of the Brahma Viharas, I am a proponent of all four of them because
Mm,
metta and compassion have been integrated, have been more or less um, engaged with and brought forward, but mudita and equanimity, they's my jam.
yeah. Mudita being sympathetic or vicarious joy, right? Joy felt at
Correct.
the well-being of others, or the good fortune of others. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you're into three and four, huh? I
Yep.
can, four has always been tricky for me.
That's what
Not
everybody says.
I know I'm not special in that regard, but not equanimity as like a meditative idea or as like what is it? One of the it's one of the factors of awakening, maybe. I don't
Yes, it
know.
is.
I forget
It's
which
on
list
a
it's
number
on.
of lists. Yes.
Yeah, it's on a few lists.
Yeah.
But in terms of as a Brahma Vihara, I understand it as really being framed in terms of basically being like, I can't control what other people right. It's like it's about like other people being being subject to their causes and conditions, right? There's a sort of like there's a particular flavor of like the Brahma Vihara equanimity that seems like specific. And I've
Yeah.
never
Well,
quite been able to, it's like you're like wishing them well. If they're suffering, you wish them freedom from that. If they're doing great, you feel great about that. And then the last one is like, and good luck to you. You know what I mean? Like,
I
can you
actually
help me?
think, I actually think equanimity allows us to move and duck and all the things that one. You remember, most of y'all maybe, I don't know, saw the movie Matrix. I don't know, the first one, and then the first time we saw
Yeah.
Neo move out of the way of those bullets, right?
Uh-huh.
And if you looked at his body was stationary, grounded, and centered. And what allowed him to be able to avoid the getting shot, getting hit by stuff that was coming towards him was the groundedness, the centeredness, and being able, that positions you to be able to move in whatever way is called for in the moment in relationship to whatever is before you. So for me, equanimity is being centered and grounded such that whatever is coming towards me or whatever I'm observing and supporting in somebody else, that I can be useful, or that I can be useful for myself, or useful for them. The piece that that's just one aspect of the Brahma Vihara of equanimity. It's not the whole of it. And I tend to think of it like staying centered and grounded in the face of whatever. Doesn't mean we don't get sad, angry, all the stuff that we get, because we have a nervous system and we're humans, but we don't get stuck in it. We don't build an altar for it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate that. And I could go on talking about, we could talk so much more about the Brahma Viharas, honestly, just equanimity, right? This is fractal. We could like go in
Yeah,
as deep onto any of these we want, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to hog
right.
your time. I would rather open us up to Q&A so that other people can have the opportunity to ask you questions. I
Yes.
have this has already been I've already gotten more than my fair share of your time and wisdom, DaRa. Is it okay if we open it up?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
All right, let's do it. So, okay, everybody, it's Q&A time. Lynn, would you like to ask your question?
Hey, Dora, it's good to see
Hi,
you.
Lynn. Yeah, it's been a minute. Good to see
Yeah,
you.
good to see you. I'm super fascinated with the indigenous focusing complex trauma. I'm curious what led you to be interested in that study, and then how does that overlap with the Dhamma?
So how I became interested in it is that I got a job at the Garrison Institute, which many of you have heard of or even been there, it's that retreat. And that's why I got a job there. I was the director of the trauma program there. And 2 weeks into being there, Shirley Turcott, who is the founder of IFOT, came and gave a talk. And as she talked and explained, and we had some experiences around IFOT, I was like, oh man, this is what I have intuitively been doing as a therapist for 15, 20 years. Didn't know this was what I was doing, but got very much reinforced about, again, following my intuition and bringing all of who I am to bear in understanding, to supporting people and whatnot. And then I think about 6 months later, Shirley started a training program. And so I was off to Canada. It originates out of Canada, out of the Indigenous community, where Shirley was doing, initially was called Aboriginal focusing oriented, but then people kept thinking we were talking about Australia. So she changed it to Indigenous. Yeah, and it's now it's more prevalent in Canada than it is here. But myself and Isabella Dawn, one of the people who's in the training now, there's lots of us that are trained who are really trying to focus it here. What was the last bit of the question that you asked?
Is how it overlaps with the Dhamma.
I think because they're both indigenous based philosophies. I mean, I think that's the clearest and simplest way to respond, to answer it. That they're both unencumbered and uncomplicated in terms of having, like, a lot of uh, therapeutic forms and processes, a lot of Dhamma processes and forms come to centering, again, that Euro-linear and analytic mind, and then recognize, oh, we left something out, and they add it in. IFOT formed from the inside out. So it was indigenous, and then it moved into other spheres, if that makes sense. Yeah. Thanks for the question, Lynn. Good to see
Thanks,
you.
Lynn, and thanks, DaRa.
Uh-huh.
Neha, would you like to ask your question?
Yes. Hi,
Hi,
Dora.
Neha. Good to see you too.
Thank you so much. Okay, my question, I'll try to make it succinct. Um, I think that, when I started meditating a few years ago, and things felt a bit less tumultuous out in the world, I was able to kind of be a bit more rigid in my practice and comes to the meditation object and really kind of, the practice of staying with the object and like gently acknowledging things that come but not being pulled by them was easier, I would say. But my practice, like, it's become a lot more embodied, and I think externally things have become much more tumultuous. So now a lot comes up when there's space internally, and I'm having trouble discerning when to kind of tend to that or maybe change the object, I guess, or maybe even the mode of meditation from bringing in like a Brahma Vihara when it's needed because something like difficult wants to emerge versus the benefit of like the grounding that you get from, having an intention to stay with the breath or the body. Back to that. So it's just become tricky now when I sit because I don't know what's gonna come up and I get stuck with the like intention versus like what's happening in real time.
I think it's and I don't think it's either or. And I also really urge you, which you may be doing already anyway, naturally, and not just maybe so aware of it, but that you really, really check in with the body. The body will inform you. The body will let you know whether you're being averse to some circumstance or some arising and wanting to chill that out, or whether it's really not the place to be in that moment, and to make that discernment and to trust your intuition, trust yourself that you know the best out of any teacher. That's what Buddha's good for saying, try it on for yourself, right? Don't just take it because I said it. And so I think part of it is strengthening what you're doing. I mean, even indicated by the question that you're asking, strengthening your ability to trust yourself, to trust your practice, and to not compare it to any teacher, other yogi in terms of what they're doing. You figure out what supports you. And you may even want to, like like when you said, oh, I don't even know, maybe should I do a Brahma Vihara? It's like, okay, that's like Christians, like, should I pray because this isn't so you may want to just bring one of the Brahma Viharas in as part of your practice, make it actually part of your practice time. And to really, I know you and I met on retreat, I think it was, and that's one of the usefulness of retreating, is it gives you the space and the time to try out a lot of different things, right? And then, you probably heard me say, or I don't know, I say different things at different retreats, but how if I leave a retreat with one thing that I'm now going to incorporate in my home practice, then that's great. That's great. But the main thing that comes to me in response to the question is trust yourself and don't compare what you're intuitively knowing to anything that anybody else is saying or doing. Trust yourself.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Naya. Thanks, DaRa. Chappelle, would you like to ask your question?
Yeah, thanks, John. Thanks for coming. Really good to meet you.
Good to meet you as well.
Yeah, I really appreciate your Matrix reference. It's my favorite movie. So I can see that seen in a different way now. Yeah, I had a question around meta practice. I find that I lean on the end of grasping too much. Like I'm kind of like one of those practitioners who do care about like progress and stages and experiences really on the path. And I think it's probably corrupting my meta practice.
Did you say corrupting?
Yeah. It feels that way because, when I get the, I guess, meta feeling to arise in my body, I find almost that I want more of it. and that kind of background wanting more of it somehow stifles it actually becoming more.
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you have any tips on how to, I guess, relax.
You know the answer. I just with the question that you brought up. But the place that I would take a look is even if you drop below that, like you spoke about attachment to wanting more of the whatever the feeling is or the sense that you have out of the meta practice. You may want to see if you can in meta practice actually drop down below the practice and see if there's some motivating or wanting or expectation or anticipation or anything around the practice other than just practicing metta, right? And even the grab, you didn't use the word grabbing, I don't think, but even the reaching for whatever it is you experience when you're doing meta practice and want to hold on to. And you're right, you said you answered that part of the question yourself. And that's the least helpful way in terms of generating and growing a sense of metta. Do you do metta for on all of the categories or just yourself, or like how do you what does your practice look like?
I tend to try to stick to easy beings.
Easy beings.
Funny
Okay.
enough, like I don't know if I fit that category. I'm
Okay.
kind of sure, but
Well, that's what I was going to suggest. I'm going to say you might put down everybody but yourself and spend a little bit of time practicing metta just for chapel. Did I pronounce your name correctly, or is it chapel?
Chappelle.
Chappelle, thank you. Just practice for yourself, Chappelle, and see what happens. And if it can bring some balance for you, um, the mind, the striving mind often gets very agitated with metta and the Brahma Viharas because it doesn't necessarily take you someplace. And so the practice of the Brahma Viharas in general is about relaxing and relaxing into it. And I would wonder if the non-relaxing feeling that you're getting or the wanting to relax more is being generated from you having an expectation or an anticipation of wanting something from the metta practice. Well, that hit a nail on the head, that big smile that came on your face. Something felt
Yeah, I
familiar in that
mean,
moment.
yeah, one of my like practice or aspirations is the samatha and the states of samatha. Um, I feel like they're they're really inspiring, and I feel like I
Mm-hmm.
almost have an opinion that like ability to like access those states is a kind of a good signature of like really exceptional mental health, but I might be going too far.
Not necessarily. Yeah, not necessarily.
Yeah, I think awareness seems to be the more important thing regardless of states.
Well, it's not so much more important, but they support each other. I
Mm.
mean, one of the ways that I'm able to sustain a degree of samatha is because I have strong awareness, and they really support each other. So not to you want to cultivate both. You want to cultivate both, and metta can be a practice that cultivates and grows depth of concentration. Absolutely, absolutely. But you got to be practicing it without judgment and hopes that it's going to get you someplace. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Are you able to? Have you done any retreats, whether it be like a weekend or a longer one or anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've been on a few shoots.
Okay. Have you done any BV retreats or meta retreats?
Just one. It was kind of on all the Brahma Viharas.
It was on all the Brahma Viharas. Okay. And well, I don't want to, I want to make space for other people to ask some questions, but that might be something that you consider also. Not to in November of 2026, myself and Devin Barry, I don't know if you're familiar with Devin, are teaching a month long at the Forest Refuge on the Brahma Viharas.
Oh,
So I
cool.
just put it out there, you look to see whether you can arrange your life in such a way that you might be able to access at least a couple of weeks of that. But
If you
short
have
of
a
that,
summertime spot,
say what?
if you have a summertime spot, that'd be great.
Those are the
I mean,
prime spots. The teachers, I don't know if I'll ever get a summertime spot.
word.
But take the practice of the Brahma Viharas and of metta, take it on just like you take on the practices that maybe are more in the wisdom domain. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Christina Feldman's book is one of the most accessible ones on the Brahma Viharas that I find. Have you looked at that? Christina Feldman.
I
It's
think I
called
might have a
Unbounded.
copy. Yeah.
You have a copy? Well, break it open.
All right. It's been a while, so I will.
You're not who you were when you read it before.
Mm,
So see what happens.
word. Thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Thanks, Chappelle, and thank you, DaRa.
Yeah, you're welcome.
For anyone who also wants to follow up on that, the Christina Feldman book that DaRa is referring to is called Boundless Heart. Boundless Heart. It's a book on the Brahma Viharas. All right, so I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to give people a second. If you have questions, don't be shy. You've got open opportunity and a clear lane. But yeah, let's give people a minute.
While taking a moment, then I'm going to say something else in terms of Chappelle.
Yeah, sure.
Part of this is one of those moments of the interfacing of IFLT and Dharma. So one of the things to consider is that part of the difficulty with the Brahma Viharas is that when you practice the Brahma Viharas, they actually break the heart open. And we actually find that we can be in the world with a healthy, protected heart, but not a heart that's crusted over trying to keep us safe. This may not have anything to do about you, and I may be making some assumptions, but given that I saw a body in front of me that was a body of African descent, there's a lot of protecting that has had to happen over the years. It's been what we've been able to do to survive. One of the things you might want to take a look at is some of that difficulty with opening the heart relegated to some ancestral story or some ancestral experience, some immigration experience. There's lots of reasons why the heart closes. And so your attempt to venture into that domain of the heart may be being influenced by historical pieces that you have to take a look at, that you have to turn towards and actually bring metta to that. So I just wanted to add that in.
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, in a weird way, like kind of reflecting on it, I kind of felt that there is something kind of blocking me. But I haven't really ventured into exploring that piece.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So lean into your awareness practice. Be kind to yourself. And just touch in a little bit. You don't have to go the whole shebang. Touch in a little bit and see what arises. See what you can work with. And engage nature.
While I have you, I had another question for you, if that's okay with the group.
So we've got room. Please go for it.
Okay, cool. You did mention elements, and I agree. Yeah, I highly resonate with kind of like that idea. Do you find that you find like any patterns in the elements in terms of like how they particularly help people? Like, do you find like people gravitate towards fire element for one particular issue or wind element,
Mm,
or is it kind of
that's interesting. That's interesting. I've not thought about it that way. I mean, I think that there is a lot of teaching that the elements do um, when we're paying attention. Just like now, I don't know where you are, but I'm in New Jersey and the trees have started changing and the weather's a little cooler. So it keeps me grounded in impermanence. You know, the weather. Some of us live in places maybe where there's not a lot of change in the weather, but it keeps me grounded in impermanence. Um, I think that people maybe gravitate to different elements depending on what's happening for them. I don't necessarily think that there's one that somebody kind of like grabs onto and rides that particular element ongoingly forever and ever and ever. But I think it has a lot to do when you think about the elements, you know, fire means bringing the burning up of the actual transformation of something into another element, right? Or you think about water and movement and cleansing, you know. So I think it depends on you think about air in terms of breath, you know, and life force. So I think it depends on whatever is up or so excuse me, for somebody in terms of what they may be drawn to. And I think myself and probably Taweri, and maybe there's a few other people. I'm sure there's a few other people. If you go into Dharma Seed and you type in element meditation, you'll get some guided meditations back working with the elements.
awesome? Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thanks, Chappelle. All right, we've got a question from Laurence. Laurence, would you like to ask your question?
Sure. Hi, DaRa.
Hi, Laurence.
Thank
Thank you. Laurence is the reason I'm here, y'all.
I've been asking you for a while,
Yes, you have.
and I'm so glad that you're finally with us. Thank you so much, and so grateful, of course. And I had a simple question because we almost touched it, but I didn't get the answer, which I probably heard previously, but I thought people may be interested. How did you come, how did you encounter the Dharma in the first place? And what
That's
brought you in?
So what brought me at my first retreat was a Goenka retreat.
All right. You can
And I
explain
did.
for those who don't know.
Oh, Goenka is a more strident, I don't even know how to describe it, strident, conservative, practicing way of practicing Vipassana. And it's 10 days, and I think it's still the same. You don't walk, you just sit, you sit, you sit, you sit. So that was my first retreat, and I wasn't looking for anything. I actually did Goenka retreat based on a girlfriend. I had a girlfriend who we're still really good friends, and she was a spiritual seeker, and she was kind of like the scout, and she'd go out and try things, and then she'd say, "You got to come and do this. You got to come and do this." So I was following behind her, doing a Goenka retreat, and it was, ooh, that retreat. It's kind of like you know, you've heard like when some people teach people how to swim, they push them in the deep end and they say, "Okay, swim." That's how the Goenka retreat felt like. Push you into that retreat, like, okay, now practice. But I tell you, coming out of that retreat, I knew how to practice. Like I knew the technology of practice, not necessarily a lot of the philosophy, but the technology of practice I knew. And there was a point in the retreat where I was really, 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 really suffering. This body was not used to sitting, and then, really suffering. And I explain to people, I tell people it was the most awfulest, most beautiful thing I've ever experienced. So I came out of that retreat and I was like, don't want to do that again. Don't want to do that again. And the same girlfriend found out about or heard about IMS, Insight Meditation Society. And we said, okay, well, let's give that a go. We'll go to the women's retreat because at least we'll have that all in common. All these women will have that in common. So we went to the women's retreat, 100 women, and she and I were the only BIPOC people there. And we were like, oh, no. I tell you, in my career, it's the only retreat I ever left early. Out of the many retreats that the dissonance, the difficulty, the challenge of the bodies, the Black bodies and the white bodies, it was too much. So we stayed about 5 days, and then we're out. We left. But the Dharma had grabbed me at that point. So it grabbed me at the Goenka point, and so I needed to find so what I decided to do, what this relates maybe to a little bit what Neha was asking to earlier. I decided I was only going to do BIPOC retreats, that I was going to remove the challenges that came with this body being in white spaces until I felt that I had a significant amount of familiarity and practice with the practice such that I could practice anywhere with anybody. And there's definitely certain things that I learned that I would, by being in BIPOC retreats, that I would not have learned had I not. And then there's other things that I learned that I had to learn in dominant culture retreats that I couldn't learn in BIPOC retreats. So, but I really created the conditions for me to get my practice under my belt before branching out. So that's how I came to it. Thank you for the question. I don't get to tell.
I loved to hear that. Thank you so much. No, I don't think I had heard it. So
I don't think so.
No. So I'm so happy. Thank you, DaRa.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Laurence. Thank you, DaRa.
You're
And
welcome.
yeah, and as DaRa said, Laurence is sort of our teacher liaison. It's one of the many wonderful things that she does to support and propagate the teachings, but she helps us at Sitheads just of her own generosity connect with teachers and handle the logistics and entice them to come talk with us. And it's such an enormous gift to do that, and we appreciate you very much, Laurence. So thank you so much. Deep bows to you. Laurence, we have one more question. It's a second question. Are you cool with taking it?
Yeah.
All right, great. Hey, Lynn, do you wanna ask your next question? And then I think we'll probably wrap up from there.
Okay.
Well, thank you again, DaRa, for coming and Laurence for coordinating, and John for me hosting. My question is related to what you were talking to Chappelle about, kind of Brahma Viharas, and so this is a pretty tough year. So with the political environment today, like how do we practice with an undefended heart and assess our ancestral wisdom? Like how do we cultivate resilience in our practice with the current political?
Well, I know John and I had that tete around equanimity, but I tell you, when equanimity really became part of my practice was 16 years ago, whenever it was that we had the president that we have now. During that period, initially, I was all over the place with that, with a lot of emotions and a lot of thoughts. And I was like, there's got to be something in the practice that can be helpful to me in terms of navigating these times. And I guess because I'm a Brahma Vihara, and it wasn't in the domain, it was in the domain of the heart. It wasn't in the domain of analytics. And when I started going through the 4, it was definitely not meta. I wasn't feeling no meta for nothing at that time. Compassion's like, okay, that might be it. We'll see. Joy, no. And equanimity. I was the least familiar with equanimity at that time. But I said, you know what? Balance. Like, at least if I'm not able to impact or do anything in relationship to the circumstances. One of the activism things that I can do is I can be well. Like I cannot succumb to that I can be well myself. And so I took on equanimity practice singularly for 6 months, And it just became like breathing to me, such that I didn't get taken off base from where I was. And the one thing is, when you can stand in your truth and you can stand solidly, you're much more effective and impactful as an activist or as somebody that's making changes, or much more, rather than if you're ranting and raving and angry and then people don't hear you when you bring that. It also, when you're centered like that and gathered like that, it allows you to make skillful choices, you know? And so like here in the current conditions, you know, I'm almost 70 years old. I'll be 70 next year. And I'm like, I can't do activism at 70 like I did it at 35. I just can't do that. So what does it look like now? What does it look like now? And I went through this process with myself. And one of the ways it looks like for me now is to take care of the care people, like to take care of them so that they can stay resourced and nourished and regenerated so that they can go and do the outside work. So to look at that. And the other thing I wouldn't say to caution, but we have to remember, you know, part of what's going on now is being influenced by technology in terms of the immediacy of the darts, the immediacy of the hits and whatnot. But these times are no worse than the time, you know, like the enslaved Africans weren't like, oh, this is not so bad. You know, you're like the Jewish people in the Holocaust, like, oh, this is not so. Humankind suffering. This is what we are present to now. And thank goodness we have, you know, and are engaged with a form, a practice, community, Sangha, that increase in these kinds of times. We need to be connected to each other. We need to be in Sangha with each other. So I just say that to say these are awful times, and there are always awful times until human beings, maybe never, I don't know, decide to make that evolutionary jump to like connection and love.
Thank you
so You're welcome, Lynn.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lynn. Thank you, DaRa. What a beautiful question and conversation on which to end. We're bringing it in for a landing at the perfect time. We're right on time. DaRa, this was so wonderful. So thank you. Are there any anything that you want to say before we say goodnight?
Not much. Just want to thank you all for having me. And this was so fun. I don't get a chance to do it in this relaxed kind of interface very much in terms of teaching or just being with people. So really appreciate the opportunity that arose out of your invitation for that for me. And then the last thing I would say is just keep one foot in front of the other. Just keep moving forward. That's Bhikkhu Bodhi. You know, he says in order to find freedom, you know, just start and continue. That's it.
It's that simple, huh? All right.
Yeah.
Well, DaRa, thank you again. I hope maybe you'll join us again sometime. If you enjoyed the relaxed format, we'll keep it relaxed. Please come back and hang out with us another time.
Would love to. Yeah.